Live video. Can you see it though?
Yep, right here.
You can see the comments?
Yeah. Okay.
Right. All right, everybody, this is the first time I'm doing this, so I assume there might be some technical problems, but those of you who are here, thank you for joining. Hopefully I'll be able to find the list of questions quite soon. I might be getting some help. So the live feed, you can see the live feed. List of questions. I might be getting some help. There we go, chat. So if you just bear with me for a few moments, I'm just trying to find the list of comments where we should be able to then interact with each other. My idea about today is that to have an interactive session the best I can, so that it's not just me talking and whoever's listening will be listening. So that's where we are right now. Can you see the list of questions? Where?
Questions. I'm looking for it now. Okay. Here it's on the thing on the website now, live stream.
Yep. All right. So it looks like it's working right now. So we have you up and running. So if those of you who are watching, if at any point you want to ask any questions, then please just type it in the comments section, and then what we'll do is when it comes around to when we find a break in the conversations, I'll be able to answer the questions. So, just to get things started, I still can't see the list of questions anywhere. I can't see the comments of the list of questions.
Maybe on.
All right, okay. Can you just write them in this? Right, so I've taken some help from my son Shahar, who's going to be writing the questions down and passing them to me as and when they come up. So let's just start the session by introducing myself. So my name is Dr. Ashique Selim. I'm a consultant psychiatrist, and I work at PHWC, which is the Psychological Health and Wellness Clinic based in Bonani. Ever since the lockdown, we've been working from home. So all our therapists are currently working online, doing sessions with their clients and new clients who are coming through to the service. So I myself am doing the same thing, seeing my clients online and doing sessions. So we're now into the third week of being at home, and I thought that maybe doing some sessions online might be helpful. Also, it keeps me busy. So the first topic that came up organically was anxiety. So that's what we'll talk about today. But if there are any comments, any suggestions about what people would like us to discuss at later times, then that would be quite helpful for me as well. Please also just send us a message on Facebook saying or asking anything that you'd like us to discuss. Depending on the participation today, I'd like to make this a weekly event and maybe even bring in guests who we can talk about different things with at different times. So today we chose anxiety. So the first thing would be to say, well, what is anxiety? And why do we want to talk about it at this time? So anxiety is a very a normal human experience. It's an emotion, it's a feeling, it's something that we have evolved to feel for a very long time. So it's quite a primitive emotion that has been around ever since we were hunter-gatherers. Now, anxiety is related to our response to fear, and it linked to the adrenaline pathway. So traditionally or historically, when man would come face to face with some kind of physical danger, we would have the flight or fight response, which releases adrenaline. And this then causes changes. So it can changes in our body. So our heart rate increases, our breathing becomes faster, becomes rapid, our blood moves from our gut and moves into our muscles, towards our heart and also towards our lungs. So this makes us ready to run or to fight. But what's happened is that man has removed itself from the natural environment, and we now live in these artificial environments, especially now with this COVID situation. We're stuck at home and not going out at all. So we rarely come face to face with a danger of physical harm, such as a wild animal or or even a robber. So because right now we're safe and we're at home. However, our mind, our brain hasn't learned how to differentiate between different types of danger or threats. So right now we're in this artificial situation where we're living in our houses, we're coming face to face with a danger. This virus which we can't see, we can't touch. We know what it's doing. We can see how people are reacting. And because of this, we are experiencing fear. Now, this fear causes that same reaction, the same reaction that we have when we're facing a lion or a tiger in the forest. And what happens is we get adrenaline at times. And that adrenaline causes our heart rate to go up. It causes our breathing to become rapid. It causes the blood from our gut to move away. So we then start to have what we call symptoms of anxiety, which are palpitation or hyperventilation or butterflies in the stomach. So these are all symptoms of anxiety. So we have now moved away, and so for example, when you're coming face to face with that danger and you run away, you can face it. However, right now, we have nowhere to go. We're stuck home, and this danger is out there, and there's very little we can do to alleviate that anxiety in the short term. So it's quite a difficult situation, and this anxiety that we are feeling is an anxiety which everybody is feeling. It's not a pathological one, which means that it's not something which is an illness or a disorder. It's a very normal experience, myself at times in the day I'm feeling anxiety. People around me are feeling anxiety, and this is very normal. So, for example, when we're going into an exam, we feel anxiety. At this stage, I'd like to say that actually, generally in life, there's two types of anxieties. We have the anxiety which is normal, so it's a normal amount of stress which we can deal with, and actually it makes our performance better. But there's also an anxiety which is crippling, so it stops us from performing or acting in a particular way. So I'm just going to pause here because I realize I've been talking for 6 or 7 minutes straight, and I'm just going to go to the questions and see if there's anything interesting for us to have a look before I keep talking. So please use this time to write more comments, and then we'll see.
He was just telling me he was just telling me to do more positively. He's just something positively and boosting the victim's morale. This one was a good question. This one.
Right. Okay. So two very good questions. One was from a dear colleague of mine, and the question is. You know that COVID is also posing risk of discrimination and stigma in the affected and their families. Can you please discuss some positivity in boosting the victims' morale as well as awareness for people around? So that's a very important point that you brought up here, because you are very true in saying that right now, because of this fear, and I'll go back to that because the topic of today's discussion is anxiety. Fear makes us do many things which is against our character, and very often it is this anxiety which also makes that worse. So discrimination and stigma are rampant during the times of fear. Now, people who are affected are coming, are having to face people who are, who are fearful, and because we do not, there is so much we don't know, but there is also so much we do know. So over here, if we, I'm not an expert in viruses, I'm not an expert in infectious diseases, so my word with regards to the medical aspects of the virus is something that you need to double check, because I, like everybody else, are relying on the news and the experts to tell us. So from what we do know is that the virus is spreading. However, the mortality is low for people who don't have pre-existing conditions. But having said that, families need to be aware that that if we follow guidance, if we follow what we are being told to, such as making sure we wash our hands, making sure we keep those who have pre-existing medical conditions safe, then there is no reason why this situation can't be handled. So thank you for that question. The next question is, How can we help the ones who are living alone? Do you have any suggestions or people or friends of people who haven't seen anyone in the last half a month? So again, very good question. So not only are we dealing with this fear and this anxiety of this virus and this illness, but we're also dealing with a very strange way of life. So we are by ourselves at home. You know, we're spending time with family, and sometimes we don't like our families, and that's making it very difficult. But your question is about those people who are not seeing anybody. Now, one of the positives, one of the good things, I guess, that we have going is that we are now more connected as a society virtually than we have ever been before. So if, for example, this lockdown or this pandemic were to have happened, let's say 30 years ago, you know, or even 25 years ago, then we wouldn't have had laptops or internet or smartphones, and connectivity would have been so much worse. So while we are alone and while we are isolated in our own little flats or units, we still have connectivity. And I think it's a good time for us to be mindful of those people who we know and love and care about, who are home alone and don't have anybody with them. So many people are fortunate, they have their partners and their children and their parents with them, but many people don't. So we should make more of an effort, first of all, as people who love these people, to be able to make contact with them. And also we need to, for those people who are alone, we need to, we have to have the confidence to be able to reach out. You know, it's a difficult time for everybody. We need to try and connect. So there are many apps going around where people are connecting with friends and family, and by doing this constantly, we can make sure that we stay sane and we stay healthy during this time. Right, I'm just going to look at another question that we have. I think I'm getting the hang of this now. Right, so it's quite a good question, and what it says is, does inadvertently tooth grinding have anything to do with anxiety, both while sleeping and awake? This translates into blinding jaw aches and headaches. Also very irregular sleeping patterns, waking up about 10 to 15 times minimum every day. So tooth grinding at night is something that dentists have to deal with all the time. And while the grinding of the teeth during the daytime is associated with anxiety, from what I know, daytime anxiety doesn't necessarily have an impact on teeth grinding at night. So you can be completely relaxed during the day and still grind your teeth at night, and vice versa. There's a lot of people who grind their teeth during the day when they are anxious or worried and stressed, but it's not necessarily linked to daytime anxiety, from what I know. Again, I may be wrong. But what the second part of what you mentioned is that you end up having irregular sleep. And over here, I think focusing on sleep hygiene might help. This might actually take us into another talk one day when I can have a session on sleep hygiene. I think that might be quite helpful. So I'll take a note of that. Thank you for mentioning that. At the end of today's talk, I'll have a quick talk about how we can remain healthy. And over there, I'll talk about sleep. With regards to the teeth grinding, I do know that dentists suggest a mouth guard to prevent that from happening. So obviously right now you can't visit a dentist, but maybe if you know a dentist, something over a conversation over the telephone, or maybe even a group online, if you can find and ask the question, they may be able to come up with a suggestion. Right, I'm going to take one more question, and then we'll Right. So it's a really interesting question that you asked here. And this is about control. And it says a key cause of anxiety is that is a factor of control. So especially with what's going on, there's a lot of what's happening that cannot be controlled. Now, this is really, really important. And for me, I do therapy with clients on a regular basis. And this is something that I've learned through time, that we often get very worried. We get very anxious about primarily the future, right? So what they say is that, or I don't know who they is, but what we learn is that anxiety comes from when we spend too much time in the future. So when we keep thinking, well, where am I going to go on holiday, or am I going to fall sick, or is so-and-so going to die, or am I going to become fat? These are all anxieties. So we're living in the future. And if we spend too much time in the past, by this what I mean spend time is our thoughts, our conscious thoughts. If we spend too much time in the past, so if we think, well, I did so and so, or I should have gone on holiday, or I didn't make the most of my time in university, or I didn't do this right, then what tends to happen is we get depression. So your question is about control, and this is absolutely true, because when we spend too much time thinking about the future, we get worried that what if this does not come true? And the reality is that we have very little control of most aspects of our life. So, for example, we can choose to lead a healthy life, and we can choose to, not, say, for example, not have that extra bit of sweet because it's bad for my health. But the reality is that something like this might happen, and we may fall sick. Random occurrences do happen. And as a society in general, we tend to worry so much about the future. And part of this starts from our schooling, where we are told that we have to start working for our exams, we have to start working for our results. And this then results in people just thinking about the future and worrying and getting anxious about things that we cannot control. So my comment about the health, yes, we can control our health. We can try and be healthy, but random things do happen. Doesn't matter how healthy you are, you may get cancer, or you may get an autoimmune disorder. So and those kind of things, yes, we can do things to minimize them. But having said that, there are also random occurrences where there isn't. So as a society, I feel that in order to combat this, we do need to spend more time in the present. And this COVID situation has provided us with that opportunity where we can actually spend time in the present. We have a lot more time. We're not traveling. We're not stuck in traffic. We're not having to deal with everyday situations the way we did before. So we do have that time to appreciate the now, what's happening now. And if we do appreciate that, then it makes us all the more easier for us to deal with the uncertainty that is there. So thank you for that question. That's very good. All right. So the next question is, how can we cope with the constant sense of doom? It's really difficult to function and go about performing daily tasks with so much uncertainty. I think many of us are struggling to detach from these worrying thoughts. So thank you for that question. It's so true. We are being bombarded by doom, by the thoughts of all the bad things that are going to happen. We're going to be locked at home for a year. Our offices aren't going to open, businesses are going to close, and millions of people will die. But if I link this up to the previous question about uncertainty, now the reality is that we don't know. There are positives and negatives. And the way we can deal with this is by controlling our access to information. So first of all, social media doesn't have filters when it comes to providing us with information. So my suggestion is to limit access to social media, to have times. So for example, if you wake up in the morning, it's probably not a good idea to open your news app and look at the number of deaths that happened in the last day. Yes, at one point. So maybe if you wake up, you do your morning routine, and then you sit down, look at the news, and then you put it away. Don't rely on people sharing information about the doom and gloom, because it's negatively biased, right? So it's more likely that people will share, and it's more likely that social media apps will actually boost the negative doom and gloom situations. So the reality is that we don't know, and to be honest, that's okay, because there is a lot that we do know. We do know that if we stay at home, we'll wash our hands. If we maintain the standards that we need to, if we maintain social distancing, then we can stop the flow of this virus and we can go back to normal. So I think the way to deal with that is to limit our access to the information that we have and be selective. So having fixed times in which we can access social media, and also having fixed times when, and having fixed sources from which we access that information. Right, okay. So the next question, it's quite a large one, and actually I might do a whole session on that at one point. And that is, how do we maintain the mental health of children? Now, this is a little bit of a side thing of mine, that I do believe that that in our society, pre-COVID, our society, and when I say our, I'm talking about Dhaka, Bangladesh in general, our society is not a healthy situation for children's mental health, right? So children, they all go to school, which is fine. I have issues with the way schooling is done, but if that were just the case, it's okay. But after schooling, then they have tutors. There is this fear again, and some of it is valid because of pollution and traffic. But children are not encouraged to participate in extracurriculars activities. Things are getting much better. So things are much better now than they were before. Access to sports and activities are much better. But having said that, the closer a child, so when a person becomes a teenager, the pressure of education is put on them to such an extent that mental health problems are happening more and more and more in younger people. So this COVID situation has actually reversed that a little bit, and children have a lot more time. They are at home, but they're having time to be able to do things that they enjoy. For example, doing some art, or talking to their friends on social media apps, or doing some cooking, getting involved in the hobbies that they like, board games and video games. So with regards to children, during this situation, it's quite important to be able to, first of all, to moderate our own behavior around them. So we need to try and make sure we don't get anxious around them, because they will then feed on our own behavior. So that's one thing, which is very important. The second thing is to be able to listen to them, so that if they are getting worried, if they have a question, we shouldn't dismiss them. We should be very careful that we don't lie to them. Again, that's something that happens in our society, where people think children shouldn't know bad things, but children pick up on our emotions, and those. It is so important for us to not confuse them. So for us to tell them actually what's happening, so that we can, so that because they know, they will figure out, they pick up the emotion, and if the information we give them is conflicting, then it'll only make their mental health more fragile. So being honest with them, being open with them, allowing them space. So for example, right now, big exams have been cancelled. So if children want to be able to do things, that they enjoy, then it's okay. We need to balance that with their education. Obviously, they need to keep up with their education, but that balance is now more important, and it's achievable. It's now achievable, whereas in the past it wasn't achievable because of school and because of societal pressures. So I think it's a great opportunity for us to be able to work with children and make sure that they have a healthy life. So thank you for that question. So, yeah, so it's a very valid question, and so the question is, hello, from our responsibility, how can we make the underprivileged people of our society mentally strong during the worst situation, as they are living from hand to mouth and suffering a lot? The truth is that yes, there is a lot of suffering right now, and there's a lot of positive efforts going on. So for example, I work for PHWC and our parent company at Sajida Foundation, and I know that the team is working tirelessly with underprivileged people, trying to make sure that people have at least food and shelter. Now, and they're not alone in doing that. If you look through social media, again, you find people who are going out and distributing rations the best they can. So when we're doing that, there is a manner in which this can be done, and that is how we can look after someone's mental health. So looking after someone's mental health during a difficult time isn't that complicated. We need to focus on simple things such as compassion. So an act of kindness which is done with compassion will make sure that we are looking after their mental health. So so the way we behave with them, the way we talk with them, the things that we say, that's how we can do it. If people want to, if they want to talk, to be able to do that. We on our side, at present, we're setting up a telephone hotline, which is going to be free of charge, and this is being done in collaboration with BRAC, PHWC, and Kanpete Roy. The telephone number is going to be advertised shortly, so we'll put it on the PHWC website soon. So if you and that can be distributed widely, and it provides psychosocial support as an intervention for anybody who needs it in our country. So that will be something that we can do. There is services available already, but there are costs associated. But so yes, I can see more questions coming in. No? All right. Okay. So so please feel free to ask some more questions. I'll probably go on for maybe another 10 or 15 minutes, and then I'll bring today's session to an end. So please feel free to ask any questions that you may have. It doesn't have to be related to anxiety. It can be related to anything about mental health, and then we can pick it up from there. So save them up. So when I was talking earlier, we talked about the origins of anxiety, where it came from, and how it presents. So the symptoms. So for us, and this is for everybody, we need to be able to recognize when we are anxious. So we are anxious. The first thing that I notice is that is my breathing changes. So you find that the breathing becomes shallow. And when I say shallow, it means it's what we call top breathing. So lungs are full of air, but tend to be breathing shallow on the top. Right? So it feels as if what we say that is right. So I can't catch my breath, right? Because it's like we're panting. So it's very common when we're worried and and we're fearful. So breathing is very interesting as a physiological process, because breathing is the one activity that we do which can be voluntary and involuntary. So, for example, when we're sleeping, our breath is being controlled by our brain automatically. Most of the time during the day, our breath is being controlled automatically. And when we get anxious, it is also controlled automatically. So we breathe rapidly. But what's interesting about that is that when we are breathing inefficiently, so when we are breathing rapidly, we then actually deprive our brain of oxygen. Because in order to breathe, for our brain to get oxygen, we need to have a particular rhythm. We need to be able to breathe efficiently. But anxious breathing makes us inefficient, and that actually puts the brain into more anxiety. So we feel more fearful. What that does is it makes us feel more anxious, and then that makes the breathing worse, makes the heart rate worse. So getting control of your breathing is the first thing we can do. Now, people find this quite strange, and a lot of people find, they think that it's quite, alternative, because they're saying, we're breathing all the time. Why do we have to take control of it? But this is the key thing that we can do, and we can do this when we realize that breathing is voluntary and involuntary. So when we take control of our breathing, we then see, we then notice that what we're doing is we are holding our breath. We are breathing shallow. We're breathing a lot quicker than we should. We're not taking a deep breath, and we're not exhaling or not letting out our breaths properly. So there's a very simple breathing exercise that I do, and I can see a few more questions coming in, but what I'm going to do is, before those questions, I'll just show you a very quick breathing exercise that I do. When you Google or when you go to meditation classes, there are very complicated breathing exercises that I sometimes find a little bit, I didn't find that I could use them. So a more approachable one is where what I suggest is to think in fours. So we set up a clock, or we have a watch, or if you want, there's a metronome, or you can even have an app. And the idea is that you have a 4-second counter, and so the idea is that we sit in a relaxed posture. So any way that you feel relaxed is okay. A lot of people will say you have to have a straight spine, you have to have all kinds of different things, but I think, that can be more stressful, because trying to remember what a straight spine is often too complicated. So just be relaxed, and we have to just think 4 seconds, and we do 4 seconds in and 4 seconds out. The 4 seconds in, the way I like to do it is we breathe in through our nose. We're going to breathe nice and slowly, and we're going to breathe deep. So we go, and then we breathe out for 4 seconds, again nice and slowly. We go, so I just did 2 cycles of 4 seconds each. I looked at the second timer on the screen, and I used that. It's a really good exercise to do. Within a minute or 2 minutes of doing the breathing, in through the nose for 4 seconds and out through the mouth for 4 seconds, again and again, just for a minute or 2 minutes at the most, it brings our breathing under control. And what tends to happen is that the automatic breathing that I was talking about, that rapid breathing, it tends to go away. It tends to go away, and just the fact that we've brought our breathing under control makes that initial anxiety go away. So it gives us an opportunity to break that cycle that we were experiencing. So again, so I've seen a few questions coming in, so I'm just going to move on to the questions. All right, what have we got? So this question is about older people, and it says, in this situation, older people are experiencing extreme levels of anxiety. So I think this question is a combination between the two questions we had about the doom and gloom and also about looking after people's mental health. So the first thing is that is to reassure people that, listen, if we follow what we have been told about staying safe, there is no reason why we can't do so. So by reassuring people, and the second is, like I said, is about moderating our behavior in front of them. So we should try and make sure we are not anxious in front of them, so that they can be relaxed. Making sure that they have a healthy routine as well. So again, if I get an opportunity, we'll just talk about how maintaining a healthy routine through the day can be so helpful. So these are the few things that we can do to help with their anxiety. So one is to not show our anxiety in front of them, to limit the access to the doom and gloom information that they do get, and to encourage them that if they just do follow the advices that we've been given, there is no reason why this anxiety should continue. All right, so I'm going to move on. Yeah, so this question is it's a very heavy one, and it's something that that is being brought up again in our organization. It's being talked about across the development sector, and it's the question of domestic abuse and domestic violence. And it says, domestic violence is on the rise. What do you suggest for families having to weather a crisis in the country and also in the home front? And to be honest, it's a really difficult one, and all I can suggest is that that even though times are bad, we do have law and order in the country. There are organizations that do help victims of violence, and they will come out. So while the emergency services are reluctant to let us out of the house, so if you go on a joyride after 6 o'clock, you will be put in prison. That's what we've been told now. But if you have a valid reason, we do know that there are law enforcement agencies everywhere. So if finding safety now is too difficult for us, then I don't know when we can stay safe. But this is a very valid question, and it is a big problem. So all I can do is I can suggest that there are organizations that do work with domestic violence, and they are available to help with that. The helplines that we have may also be able to support people, so please keep a lookout for that. Just got a message from my boss who said we should do this every week, so thank you for that. Let's see, hopefully. All right. I have some increasing anxiety because one of my family members is a doctor and they have to go out in the front line even though they found one of their colleagues to be infected. Please advise on how to manage this particular anxiety. So thank you for the question. It's so true that we have family members who are doctors who are going to hospitals and are working with people with corona. We also have even not people who are not doctors, but people who are working in the supermarket. So they're also going out and making sure our food is on the shelves. We have delivery drivers who are going out. We have bankers. I have a client who's a banker and who's having to go to the bank. And I was hearing that banking hours are reduced. So actually there's more people in the bank at the time. So these are very, very worrying situations. But all we can do right now is we can, first of all, we can support them. So if we're not going out, then what we can try and do is we can try and make sure that they feel supported. So that when they come home, when they are around us, we can try and relieve their anxiety as much as possible and not add to it, and by doing the suggestions which I said. So, for example, by limiting the access to the negative media, by making sure we can stay as relaxed as possible. And the second is to make sure and encourage them to remain as safe as they can. So following the guidance, making sure that they have access to the PPEs, making sure they have disinfectant. Right, so I'm going to move on. Right, so the next question is, so a lot of us are coping by doing what we love, and for some it's cooking and baking. How to not gain 100 pounds by eating all the cooking and baking when the gym is closed? So this is such an important one, and I myself, I've been doing the same thing. So I think I ended up baking, 4 loaves of bread in the first 2 days, and then it took us another 4 days to finish it. So we ended up having stale bread for the last few days. But you know what? Cooking, baking are such they're such meaningful and such deep activities that we must continue doing this. Eating, yes, if we're at home, we're not exercising, we do have to be careful about what we're eating. But having said that, most of us are cooking more at home, we're eating out less. So generally, if you eat home cooked food, it is healthier. So we have to be careful. We have to try and incorporate exercise into your daily routine. I'm guilty of not doing that as much as we should. But having said that, making sure we do exercise. There are lots of videos online for yoga, which can be done. There are physical health instructors, on YouTube and Facebook, and it's very so it's very possible to be able to do that. So I think this is the last question that we have down here, and that says that early on I talked about mindfulness, and so this is a really important question, and I think I might actually do a session later on, one of the other sessions. I might do it on mindfulness itself. Mindfulness, again, if you look on YouTube, if you look on Google, there's a host of resources that are available. So please feel free. You might want to try a few before you like one that is suitable for you. Anyway, so have a go. And I'll probably, in my team we have a few therapists who are wonderful mindfulness practitioners, and so I'll get them to come on maybe in a week or 2 weeks time, and then they can conduct a session. So that might be quite helpful. So I'm just going to start wrapping up. So thank you everybody for watching. I see many friends and family from across the world who have signed up, and it makes me feel very special, and encourages me that that want to do this more at a later time. So I can see people from the UK, from Canada, from America, and Bangladesh, and friends and family from everywhere, which is wonderful. So I guess I'd just like to wrap up with final thoughts. And that's about how we can maintain a routine. And what we'd like to do here is that we need to try and focus on the basics. So first is sleep. So we need to try and make sure we maintain a proper sleep time and wake up at a proper time. I see one of my friends has joined who has a new baby, so she's probably laughing and saying, "What is sleep?" But but we need to work around that. We need to try and sleep. So if you don't have a little baby, we need to try and make sure we get to sleep at a reasonable time, and we have good 8 hours of sleep. So sleeping on time and waking up on time, very important. There's so much information on sleep hygiene. So just if I'm to quickly mention a few, one is that we want to avoid caffeinated drinks after about 4 or 5 o'clock. We want to avoid sugar after, again, about 4 or 5 o'clock. We want to avoid a heavy meal at night because that's difficult. We want to avoid exercising too late into the evening because that also affects. We want to avoid sleeping medication at all costs, and we want to avoid intoxicating habits too late in the evening. So if people want to indulge, then it's better to do so a little bit earlier in the evening. So sleep, very, very important. The second is food. So making food regular, having regular eating times, trying to make sure we're healthy with what we're eating. So having good balanced diet. The third is information. So limiting social media. It's easier said than done because I now spend far more time on my phone doing online sessions than I've done in my life. But and when I'm using my phone to do the session, we also have Facebook open, so I'm seeing notifications. But when the sessions are over and that's done, then you can leave the phone in another room and then move on, and that's okay. So the third is information. The fourth is connection. So we need to try and make sure that we connect with the people who we love, and we need to make sure that they're okay. So connecting, talking on a regular basis, it's a great opportunity to do that. And the last thing is about balance. We need to make sure that we remain balanced. We try and not overdo anything at this time. It's very easy for us to be able to get consumed by any one aspect, by spending hours doing any one thing, but we need to try and balance it. So these are the few bits of advice that I have right now. And thank you everybody for joining me. I'm just going to quickly look at the questions to see if I missed any questions. If I did miss any questions, then please just drop it as a message into our Facebook page. And also, this video is going to be recorded and shared on our page. So please click on it at a later time and you can have a look. If there are any comments, please do make them. Yeah. Yeah. So I'll just quickly address this one comment and then I'll sign out. So the comment is about that when before COVID, many of us were able to compartmentalize our work and home. And this was one of the things I would tell my clients all the time, is that make sure you leave work at work, and then when you come home, it's home time and work time, very different. However, right now, it's become impossible because we're working from home, and it's very, very difficult. So little suggestions is that setting up a workstation. So for example, having a particular room in which the devices are there, working there, having a routine where there are times. So for example, saying I'm going to do these few hours of work and then I'm going to move on and do something else. So having to put a lot more effort into that compartmentalization. Little things like, for example, waking up in the morning and showering and shaving and changing into office clothes or outside clothes, very, very important, because that puts you into that working mode. So many of us are just spending our days in pajamas and working while we're doing that, but that's not good. So so trying to maintain that is really important. I think on that note, we're going to wrap up. Like I said, please like our page, share our video, and If there are any comments, send us a message. It's been a great learning experience from me. Hopefully next time it'll be more efficient, make less mistakes. And I'm hoping to do this again next Sunday at 7 o'clock. So thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you all next week. Stay safe.